It's Wednesday. It's like 7 o'clock Central. I'm here. What are you guys doing? Why haven't you all started? Like, there should be cheering and happy Wednesdays and just, oh, wait, you guys are 35 seconds behind over in the video area. Dang it. You're not caught up with me. You're not in the same time zone as me. You're not even, is this reality? How's everybody doing? I'm Matt Dillahunty. Welcome to the Hang Up right here on the line. A show where I get to do and say whatever the hell I want. And we talk a little bit about what I'm hung up on. This week, though, I'm hung up on a weird collection of things, and none of them really fit in with the guest. One of them did, but because neither one of us had the chance to really prepare for it, I'm just going to run through it very briefly because we may touch on it. And that was something that some of you saw that I posted on Twitter. There is a YouTuber named Brian Barczyk, who has been around forever. He used to do Snake Bites TV, now does his channel is just Brian Barczyk. He's just generally, as far as I can tell, I don't know him personally, a great guy who loves animals and reptiles, putting together Animal Con. He's been educating people for ages. He's got a reptarium in his home state, and he's building an aquarium across the street. And unfortunately, Brian was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, which has an incredible mortality rate. And he is, as you would imagine, struggling dealing with that. He's talked about it openly on his own channel. And my concern has nothing to do with Brian's religion or lack thereof or anything else. It is incredibly sad that there's a person here who is going to be struggling, he and his family. And so there's some Facebook groups that have cropped up that I've gone and joined that are supportive. There are people posting supportive messages. And one individual who, for now, I'm not even going to bother naming. I may do a video about this later, but one individual decided to post a video with a clickbait title of, is he really sick? And then in it, essentially proceeded to talk about how he's a new Christian and all of his good friends know it, and he won't shut up about it. And he told Brian that this was God essentially punishing him in some way, that God gave him this pancreatic cancer to wake him up to the fact that he wasn't, right in his walk with God and all this other stuff. I don't have the specifics, and we're not going to go into it here. At the end of the day, and this person faced some backlash for doing it. It's an absolutely gruesome thing to do. And in case I don't do a video, I want to make this clear. That man's a liar, because he posted an update video. So the only person's, whose opinion he cares about is Brian's, because Brian watched the video, said, I cried during this, and I love you, man. And that's cool. But Brian's a nice guy who's not going to ruffle feathers. And because Brian's already a believer, it's not surprising that someone who's being told, hey, you haven't been a good enough Christian, and this is basically God calling you, calling you out on this and giving you a trial. Of course, that person's likely to thank you for that. When I was a Christian, if somebody called me out for that, I would thank them for that, because that's what you're trained to do. But the reality is, the individual who made the video with this declaration, while it's nice that they're an otherwise nice person and a believer, they don't have good evidence that there's a God. They don't have evidence that there's a God that would give you pancreatic cancer. They don't have evidence that God, in fact, did give someone pancreatic cancer intentionally, ever. And certainly you can't demonstrate that this is the case. And so you're not telling us what is factual. You are telling us what you believe to be true and what you do not have evidence for. And when you say that you only care about Brian's opinion, that's a lie, because you posted it in a video on YouTube to the world. If I had a friend, when I was still a fundamentalist Christian, if I had a friend who was sick, and if I still believed the way that this individual believed, and I felt that this was God putting an obstacle in their path because their walk with Christ was no longer good, I would talk to that person in private, do your alms in private type of thing, rather than going out to see if I could grandstand on YouTube and leverage a terrible situation with someone with millions of followers to get myself clicks and attention, and then rationalize that this is about God or Jesus. If it were, then when you said there's only one person's opinion that you cared about, you wouldn't have pointed to Brian. You would have pointed to Jesus. You would have pointed to the God, and you would have been prepared to fulfill your obligation under 1 Peter 3:15. You would have actually shown compassion in saying, even if I believed that God was giving you this as a punishment, I would tell you that privately rather than making us all look bad. You're like many new believers. There's no zealot like a convert, and you are in way over your head. And now you're running around making assertions about things that you can't prove. Well, that's just your opinion. Congratulations, you've got an opinion, as do many other believers who don't think that God operates this way. I don't think God operates at all because, like the people that you're talking with, I'm a former Christian, a former Southern Baptist, a former believer who was raised in this and was studying to be a pastor when I found my way out, as is the case for all the people who are in the Clergy Project. It's a shame that in a community that has ostensibly nothing to do with religion, an individual gets a diagnosis that may well be a death sentence, who is reaching out for comfort and support. And many of us from all different walks of life, all different religions, are offering that to him. But you, Mr. Whatever, you decided to take this opportunity, tell someone that this was basically them being punished for not being a proper Christian, and then go out and tell everybody in the world that. Now, I don't think I've cursed at all during my little kind of opening diatribe. The temptation's there, and I'm sure you could take it and everything else. But if you happen to see this, if somebody directs you to this, I would like very much to have a conversation with you. You know who you are. And you're welcome to do it on one of the shows if you want. But if not, you can reach out to me. We can have the conversation in private, because I'm not interested in clicks and stuff. I've never made a penny off of my personal YouTube channel. I'm in the reptile community because I care, because I love reptiles, because I love the educational aspect of it, and because of people like Brian. If there were people like you occupying prominent positions in the reptile community, I don't think I'd be involved in it at all right now. But that's all right. You did something that's terrible. You did something that is vile and disgusting, and you did it grandstanding for attention. I guess you could say I did the same thing for the last 9 minutes. I decided to use you, even though you're a smaller channel, as a foil for me to have something to talk about. But the people who watch this channel know that this is absolutely genuine, and I'm absolutely pissed. And the only reason I'm not just sitting here saying fuck off and talking about what a disgusting fucking ghoul you are is because I know that you sincerely believe these things, and you're still new to this, and you genuinely think that you were helping. But now when you posted your backlash video, you no longer think you're genuinely helping, because you don't care about anybody's opinion but Brian. So you don't care about God, you don't care about the Bible, you don't care about all the people you're reaching, which means that you lied in the first one, and you did it for just grandstanding. Okay, that's cool, man. It's cool. I hope you never get pancreatic cancer. I hope nobody in your family ever has to deal with that at all. I hope nothing bad ever happens to you, because you're the type of person who thinks that when bad things happen, there's some kind of magic behind it. There's some kind of meaning or purpose behind it, rather than recognizing the evidence for what it is, which is there are plenty of wonderful, good people, including people who are as good a Christian as you think you are, who wind up with varying degrees of different illnesses. There are also incredibly horrible people, monstrous people who are vile and violent, who never suffer a day in their life. But you can cherry pick the data, and you can think that you've reached a conclusion. And instead of, I'm sure you're completely compassionate and friendly towards Brian. I'm sure that's what happens now that you've gotten off your chest the self-righteous gloating that you needed to get off your chest. But it would have been nicer to just move on to the caring part rather than the I'm going to show off part. Because you didn't show off. You showed your ass. And I may not end up doing much of a video about this, but there's a bunch of other little things that have been on my mind. And it's funny that in the description for his channel, he doesn't list Christian at all. He acts like this is the most important part of his persona. but it's not. Family man, jack of all trades, videographer, photographer, aspiring snake breeder, world traveler. I'm many things. The one thing that remains constant in all my adventures is that I maintain a positive outlook, liar, on life, no matter what gets thrown my way. Yeah, but as long as it's being thrown somebody else's way, now you're going to be sanctimonious. Join me on all my adventures, and I will put a smile on your face every day. Liar. You're a liar. You didn't put a smile on my face. I don't know how you didn't even put a smile on anybody else's face with that video. You're a liar. You're a new zealot, and you're showing off. It's sad. And I hope someday when you realize, when you look back on this and you say, wow, I did some terrible things when I was a believer or when I was a new believer. Maybe you'll be a believer forever. I didn't. I gave it up. I did terrible things when I was a believer. I didn't do anything this terrible. I had thoughts exactly like yours, but I kept them to myself because I realized that it's not up to me or you or anybody else to run around telling people what God thinks and what God wants and what God does. That's up to God. Your only responsibility was to love and to echo Christ, not to make pronouncements about how God punishes people with cancer diagnoses and things like that. You're a fraud. I was a better Christian than you when I was a Christian, and I'm a better Christian than you now, and I'm not even a Christian. It's vile. But I got to move on because I got a show and a guest. And tonight's guest might have some thoughts on weaponizing Christianity against people with illnesses. But he's also got a lot more to say on a lot of other issues, including the fact that he's just started a new foundation for his Dying Out Loud mission. Everybody, please welcome my good friend, Dave Warnock. How you doing, man?
Yeah. Hey, Matt. Yeah, I'm pissed now.
Yeah, I figured you would be.
I didn't know anything about this, but yeah, I might have some things to say about that. It's just, you said it, it's vile. It's reprehensible that he would use this kind of ideology to slam his friend. He calls him a friend. And the fact that his friend, I think his name is Brian. I apologize to everyone for my camera quality. It's I couldn't get my studio camera to work, so I'm on the I'm the romantic soft focus today.
They're both named Brian, by the way. That's why I avoided naming them, because it would have been confusing.
Anyway, the fact that his friend responded in tears is the most horrible part of this to me, because it's bad enough that he's dealing with pancreatic cancer, but now he has to deal with some guilt that his supposed friend has laid on him unnecessarily. And he's thinking, oh my God, I've disappointed God. I've done something wrong. I've tried to be a Christian, but I haven't done it well enough. I haven't been good enough. And that's what Christians do with this kind of stuff. They try to find a reason that something happens rather than just admitting that life is random and chaotic and things happen. I've been asked many times in my Dying Out Loud work about my ALS, and how would I have handled it if I'd have been diagnosed as a Christian? I left Christianity about a dozen years ago, but it would have been a lot more confusing, because in that world you have to find a reason for what happens, instead of just saying, life is random and things happen. 5,000 people a year get diagnosed with ALS. I just happen to be one of them. Who am I to think I wouldn't? Who am I to think I'm too special to get that? But to label someone a disappointment to God because they got pancreatic cancer, which is essentially what this guy is saying, that you're disappointing God.
Saying he got the cancer because he was already a bit disappointment to God. But yeah,
exactly. You're such a disappointment to God that he's going to smack you with pancreatic cancer. And now, if that's true, then once this guy, the man with cancer, once he responds and gets right with God, so to speak, then God will ostensibly take the cancer away. Is that how this works? And if he doesn't, then what's the point of smacking him with it as some kind of a spanking? The
Yeah.
whole
Well,
thing
what's going to
is
happen
so
is
disgusting.
if Brian beats cancer, if he beats the odds, because I think we're not sure yet, and I'm not inside. Like I said, I've never met him. He's just somebody that I have admired
Right.
and respected from his YouTube work. Um, shame that I'm someone who's not his friend, who would actually do better by him than his friends do.
Yeah.
But I think that the survival rate for pancreatic cancer is somewhere between like 8 and 20%, like 13%. I've seen that number as well.
Yeah. Not
If
great.
he beats the odds and survives, then it will be hailed as a miracle and it'll be credited. It'll be God allowed you to survive because you took this seriously and you got right with God. And then if he ever has a relapse, it's because, oh, well, you failed again. And if he
Yeah.
doesn't beat this and he dies, then the people who are saying that God did this to him just get to continue to use his name to preach.
Yeah.
If there is a God and he did do this, he's a prick. And even
Mhm.
if you were right about him doing it, you be agreeing with a prick.
Mhm. Yeah, a God that behaves that way, that punishes us or tests us with serious illnesses and things like that. In other words, he's got no other mechanism. Imagine me being a father and a child is disobedient to me, in my view, and I just break one of their arms just to teach them a
Yep.
lesson and to say, you know what, when this heals, you're going to learn from this because I needed to punish you for being a bad child. That's the God that these people serve. Ugh,
Yep. And
disgusting.
that God is a monster. If any parent that did that, these people would object to.
Absolutely. The Department of Human Services take that child out of the home, and
Yeah.
yet we say that this God is loving and kind and long suffering and patient, all the things, and yet they want to attribute that kind of behavior to this God. Now I'm already pissed off and worked up.
Well, I'm going to shift gears because I
Okay.
don't want. First of all, I have too much respect for Mr. Barczyk. Um, I don't want. I don't even want the appearance that we're trying to leverage his name or his issue with this. I'm just
Yeah.
mad at my perception of how he was treated.
Yeah.
But you and I were recently in the same place, hanging out at a beach house. And before we
Yeah.
get into the Dying Out Loud Foundation and a number of other issues here, in the past, we've talked about how my work-life balance or finding time away from stuff is a little different from yours. As you know, granted, I might beat you to the end of life thing. We're not sure yet. I could get hit
tried
by
with
a
that
bus
open heart
tomorrow.
surgery stuff. You tried with that heart nonsense.
I did. It was a little bit of dueling right there. But you had, and you've arranged, well, I'm not going to go into details on next year or anything else, but
Yeah.
this was a great opportunity for a bunch of people to unwind. And I was telling Arden just today, it's one of only two actual time away vacation things for more than like a day or two that I've taken in probably 10 years.
Oh, wow.
But I don't feel it because I'm really good about finding me time every day. I do my Twitch streams, I play games, even going out and working with the rats and mice. That's kind of therapeutic. It gets me away from the arguments, from all this other stuff that's going on. When you find when your time at the beach house is over and it's back to the regular daily stuff, do you find that it helped a lot and you're revitalized and ready to go, or is it, gosh, I'm really still tired and I need another vacation from the vacation thing?
It's a mixed bag. It was we were there. I mean, you and Arden were there three and a half, 4 days. It was great, and we were there 2 weeks, and people came and went into the house during that 2 weeks. Over 70 people, and I'm energized by social activity like that. I'm an extrovert, so it really feeds me. But afterwards, Bevan and I were so exhausted, and I tend to follow things like that can follow up with a little bit of depression, a little bit of
Sure.
sadness in that it's over, like post depression blue or post vacation blues. And I had a speaking gig in Tallahassee following that, so we stayed in the area down in the Florida Panhandle and spent a couple of days, just me and Bevan, unwinding and relaxing. And man, did we need it! And then we went to see some friends and my granddaughters down in Florida. So we had some more travel after that, and having something on the calendar following that was really good for me, to give me something to look forward to give me something to focus on. And I love speaking to groups like we did in Tallahassee. So it was energizing and exhausting at the same time. And but when it's over, I can't wait to do it again, kind of thing. So yeah, I'm a glutton for that stuff.
Well, we haven't gotten around to signing up for next year yet, but we do plan to. We're just in a little bit of a sketchy spot right now. I want to talk about one more thing before we get to Dying Out Loud as a foundation. You and I were both invited to speak at a conference. I just posted the link. You can go to bluewateraha.com, or you can do a search for BajaCon 2023, even though it says 2022 on the tab, but it says 2023 on the thing. So it's the Blue Water Atheist, Humanist, and Agnostics organization. This is a conference you've been to before. It's going to happen August 25th through 27th of this year, 2023. The speakers that they've got pictured up on the big screen: Seth Andrews, Dan Barker, Annie Laurie Gaylor, Aron Ra, Drew Beckius, you, me, Josh Bowen, Greta Vosper, Jeremiah Camera, Mark Gura, and Hemant Mehta. Now, that's a stellar lineup for year two.
That's a pretty good fucking lineup. You know, I'm kind of honored to be a part of that group, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, as I think this is like their second year, and last year there was for how many?
It's second year, right? Last year was inaugural.
An amazing lineup. Now, you and I both pulled out of this conference. And I talked about it briefly on the show, and now we are back on the list. And that's what I want to talk about, because there were two difficulties here. One was you contacted me because all of the proceeds from this particular convention were going to charities. One of them was an Alzheimer charity, and the other one was a Catholic hospice. And ordinarily, I wouldn't want to raise money for any Catholic charity,
right?
Even a generally good one, but I don't throw a fit about it if they're doing okay. You pointed out to me that this particular charity, this particular hospice, has on their positions that they don't support medical assistance in dying, and so basically, my perception is that I was told that this was run by like a secular organization with a board of directors. That doesn't matter to me because they are definitely allowing medical decisions or limiting medical decisions based on their religious doctrine. And you and I pulled out, and we emailed them privately to say, hey, in my case, there were several reasons. One, I'm just generally against Catholic charities. I don't trust that the money goes where they say it's going to go. For all I know, every dollar that we raise for them is going to the lawyers that are trying to shuffle priests around after they've raped kids.
Right.
Then I also made it clear that because Ed Brayton, who is a very good friend of mine, was in a position where he needed to take his own life, and I'm supportive of the whole death with dignity thing and MAID and other issues related to this, as a humanist and just as a human being looking at it. And so I have a number of other friends who may need that sort of assistance, and it would just be hypocritical of me to support a charity that's going to deny that. I don't know why people in Sarnia, Port Edward, Ontario, Canada would want to go to a hospice that was going to deny them medical treatment. But the good news is that after a couple of us objected, I had real concerns that they might just, cancel the event rather than finding another charity or whatever else. Neither of us wanted to, we're not trying to hurt anybody's convention.
No.
But you got to stand up for what's right. You and I are now going because they've dropped that charity. They reached out to both of us and let us know. I'm excited to go. It looks like a great lineup. I'm looking forward to a really good weekend. Are there other places where you're likely to draw a line? Obviously, you and I are going to draw a line on this, and you more so now than perhaps once in the past. As someone who's got a terminal diagnosis, certain things are going to be more, at the front of your mind of, hey, what's this hospice doing, type thing. Are there other places where you would draw a line where support for, like we talk about, oh, if this singer is terrible, but we like their music anyway, or J.K. Rowling being transphobic, should we buy the Harry Potter game anyway? What other areas do you find that you are now or in the past likely to just say, no, I won't do this because something about this violates my ethics, my preferences, or do you have other lines?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't offhand. I can't think of. I mean, obviously, if someone is a reprehensible person and they've shown by their behavior or their policies that they do things that I would find objectionable to minority groups or LGBTQ or trans groups or whatever, yeah, I would not support that in any way. This particular issue was like you. I objected to the Catholic connection, and the organizers of the event tried to maintain that it was Catholic in name only, that was their history, but they operated as a secular hospice and so on and so forth. But a cursory glance at their website showed that not to be true, because it clearly said that their medical decisions were informed by their Catholic beliefs, and that the resistance to MAID was because of their Catholic beliefs, and so they couldn't
Right.
they couldn't grant that to someone. That was a deal breaker for me. I didn't. Sadly, they supported this group last year, and I wasn't aware of it. I should have paid more attention to that. I was talking to Greta, and both of us just overlooked this support that they had for Saint. It had the word saint in the name of it, and that should have alerted me that that smells awful Catholic. And I got to be more aware. I just didn't. I made the assumption that an atheist and humanist conference would not support a Catholic charity, and I should not make those assumptions. And I think it was ignorance on their part. And once it was pointed out to them clearly that this was indeed a Catholic charity, and that they were basing their policies on the Catholic faith, they realized they'd made a mistake, and so they did the right thing, and they broke ties with the hospice, and they're going to choose another charity. And I think there's certain lines we have to draw. I wasn't trying to make a stink. I didn't want them to cancel the conference, although they told me if you and I pulled out, they were going to cancel it. So I thought, oh, well, shit, I didn't mean to turn over the apple cart, but I just felt like it was something I couldn't support specifically because, first of all, I have a problem with the Catholic Church for reasons you alluded to, that
Yeah.
they just have a reprehensible history with human beings, and I can't in any way align with them, or much less give my name and time and energy to something that's going to give them money. But secondly, the medical assistance in dying is, as you mentioned, is something important to me. We don't have in most states in this country that option, and Canada does. And so I don't know that I would ever choose that. The particular laws that we have in place in certain states really are not good laws. There's too many restrictions on them to help someone like me. So I'll have to find other measures to use. But the foundation, the nonprofit you alluded to, I Am Dying Out Loud, is the actual name of it. It's the whole thing about the whole mission statement is to push against religious intrusion in the processes of healthcare, death, and dying. And this is an example of that. The religion tends to prey on the vulnerable in our society, whether it's children, young people going to college, sick people, people going through addiction, recovery, divorce. They look for vulnerable spots to get their claws in. And one of the most vulnerable spots we all face is serious health issues, being in a hospice, getting a terminal disease, a terminal diagnosis. Those are some prime opportunities for religion to try to get its hooks in you. And the video you alluded to earlier, this guy telling his friend that God was judging him, is a prime example of that. His friend's in a very vulnerable spot, so he uses his religion as a weapon to try to beat some submission into him and encourage him to be a quote unquote better Christian, whatever the hell that means. And so our I Am Dying Out Loud is all about pushing against the religious intrusion into people's lives in the area of healthcare, death, and dying. And for me to go to a conference that's doing that very thing, I mean, if I'd have gone and spoke, I would have spoken out clearly against that hospice and saying, this is exactly what I'm talking about here, folks. I'll probably talk about it anyway. I may not name it, but that's the subject of my talks this year at any conferences I go to, is this nonprofit we're right now in the process of forming. We've got our paperwork filed. We're putting a board of directors together, and we're off and running. And it's this religious intrusion into people's lives, whether they send a chaplain. I just had an experience, or a friend, actually it was a woman that was at the beach, and she's found out about our nonprofit, and she said that an example, her grandmother, she lost her grandmother by suicide a few years back, and she was the first one at the hospital, and without any consent, they sent a chaplain into the waiting room to be with her. And she had been traumatized. She had deconverted from faith a few years prior to that, but in her faith, she had been severely abused by spiritual leaders in all the ways. So this chaplain immediately represented to her that abuse. And instead of bringing comfort to her, it brought more trauma piled upon trauma. And she reverted back to the compliant Christian woman and didn't push back against the chaplain, and allowed him to be in her presence and float through that whole process with her and her family. And it made the whole experience that much worse for her. And she didn't have the language or the impetus to push back against that and rise up and say, no, I don't want you here. I appreciate your willingness to come, but this is not something that I want. I'd like you to leave. We need to be able and willing to say those things. Many of us aren't. And one of the things we're going to do with our nonprofit is hopefully have chapters all around the country and teach and train people and equip people with the language, and just give them permission to push back. Sometimes that's all we need.
Right.
They're viewed as authority figures, and for many people, it's hard to push back against an authority figure, the man of the cloth, so to speak. Well, we need to have the courage, and we need the language to say respectfully. We don't have to be assholes about it, but just say, you know what, this is not something that I want, and I would appreciate you not being here. So thank you very much. And also to ask the hospital, you know what, if you're gonna offer a religious chaplain, we're going to demand that you offer a humanist chaplain as well. And I would like for your humanist chaplain to come sit with me.
I'd recommend.
Those are just some of the things we're going to be doing.
Happy to help you out in any way. And once the website's up, the paperwork's done, everything else, come back on and we'll do promotion for it. I would recommend reaching out to some people who are involved with the Military Association of Atheists and Freethinkers, because the military has a chaplain service as well. Mm-hmm. And they've had to make some changes to that. For a long time, I was for abolishing the chaplaincy in the military, mm-hmm. but you can't really, because while we have a voluntary military, well, that's a hard two words for me to string together. While it is volunteer, we also potentially have a draft. And if you're ever going to put people in harm's way, remove them from their home church, everything else, then no, I don't want you to launch something there epic. What we need is to provide them with resources that they would have otherwise. And so if you take a a young Christian kid, a Jewish kid, a Hindu kid, put them in the military and ship them off where they're not around their family or their church or synagogue or religious figures to talk to, then providing them with a chaplaincy is something that I genuinely think is important. I wish it weren't. I wish we're an entirely post-religious society, but we're not. And despite what some people think, especially considering, the conversation or the ranting that I did at the top of the show, I'm not opposed to religious freedom. I'm absolutely in favor of religious freedom, and you can say whatever you want, but we can also call you out for saying whatever you want about that.
Right.
By all means, come back on, ping me when we get the foundation information. I'm happy to help with whatever you can or whatever I can help. But on the chaplaincy front, I definitely recommend reaching out to military members who have already dealt with this in some form.
Yeah, we've actually made a connection with them at the Secular Coalition for America conference I was at a couple months ago. And we're also talking to the American Humanist Society about their chaplaincy program. So we're making some connections there, working on that.
Awesome. Well, we've got a bunch of callers. If you're ready, let's dig in. Although I see that all the lines today, right now, are atheist callers. So we're going to take them. We're going to do our best to get through them. If you have questions for Dave specifically, call in. I want to get on. But if you're a theist out there, if you're someone, if you're the type of person who thinks that God will punish someone with a terminal diagnosis, call in and explain why you think that and why you think it's worthwhile to say so publicly rather than just keeping your private convictions. If you think that there's good reason to believe in a God at all, or that a God that does this sort of thing, call in and let us know about that. If you're someone who believes in a God but disagrees with what was done earlier, please call in with that as well. And if you have a different take on medical assistance in dying, if you think Dave and I were, granted, it's our opinion, it's our rules, but you think we made a mistake in saying, no, I don't want to support a Catholic charity who does this, or you think maybe the good outweighs the bad or whatever, you can call in about all those things, but you have to do it after we make it through some of the other people who've been waiting on hold for a while. And so we're going to start here with Emily in New England. Pronouns are she, her. Emily, welcome to the Hang Up. You're on the line and you're live.
Hello, everybody. I have a question for Dave, specifically about how I can best deal with pressure to use alternative medicine to treat my symptoms and my condition, especially given that I have a not a good condition and a pretty bad prognosis. I'm disabled. I have lupus with multiple organ involvement, and I do regular aqua therapy, and then I do land physical therapy. And while I'm there, the location also has a chiropractor office in the same building, and a lot of the patients get both PT and chiro. And they talk about it like it's impossible to get better without the chiro. And honestly, sometimes it seems like they improve faster. But they push me and they talk to me about it, and they won't stop encouraging me to get it. And I also have a chiro in the family, and some of the other family members have kind of drunk the Kool-Aid, so to speak, and they're pressuring me to get acupuncture and chiro and even change my diet to match my blood type and other things like that. And it's very demoralizing. I don't have a good prognosis, and even though I know a lot of the alternative medicine stuff is nonsense, I feel tempted because it's kind of like, well, I'll give anything a try because it's better than just giving up. But I also know that I'm the target for these kind of health scams. You know, they go after the sick and the desperate, and I'm sick and desperate. And I don't know how best to deal with this.
Yeah, Emily, I'm sorry you're dealing with that. First of all, that's hard enough in and of itself. And then you couple these people coming at you on top of that. it's tough. It's hard to advocate for yourself when everyone around you is putting pressure on you to do other things, because uh, some of them come at it like, if you really love me, you'll try this. And I don't know if your family or friends have done that, but that's a really cheap shot. And I hope they're not doing that kind of, using that kind of language. If you really cared, you would try everything, because we want you around. We love you. You're our daughter. You're our sister. You're our whatever. At the end of the day, you have to advocate for yourself, and to whatever degree you're uncomfortable with these alternative methods, then just say, I mean, I've had people suggest them to be. No one close to me, though, like Bevan would never do that. She's too smart. None of my family members have done that. But there are people who have reached out and said, you need to try this, you need to try that. There's this person, if you go to England, they'll cure you. Um, and they're bogus, and they usually know they are, but they're preying on the vulnerable, as you said. Are these people who are the ones who are pressuring you to do these alternative medicine tries, are they particularly close to you, or is it someone you're afraid of offending if you push back a little more vehemently?
They're pretty close to the family. I can't really push back on the ones at physical therapy, because I might lose my temper, and that would make me the bad one, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then I don't want to get in trouble there, because the PTs and people, they're okay with the chiro. They're great PTs. I've improved a lot, but they're not anti-chiro like some PTs are. And PT is physical therapy, for people who might not know. Sorry for the jargon.
Yeah, that's okay.
But
physical therapy and
yeah. But so I at therapy, twice a week, I have to keep my mouth shut and just grit my teeth and try to move away from them, or try to change the subject. But it's constant. And as far as my family, I try to tell them to just stop, but it's less, I love you, so do this. It's more, we'll go out to eat and I'll order something off the menu and they'll tell me, you're making yourself die faster. Well, don't complain that you're in pain later, because that's not your blood type diet. And, it's that kind of a thing, like, well, you're going to make yourself sick, so I don't want to hear it, if it's that kind of a thing.
I push back on people. Anyone that says those kind of things to me is, I kind of push back in terms of diet, or like if I'm having a cigar and people say, well, you're going to kill yourself with that, Dave. I say, well, I'm dying anyway, so I'm going to enjoy some things. And that's kind of how I look at that. I'm going to, if I'm not, within reason, but if there are things I enjoy in my diet, or things I like to drink, or cigars, and if people push back too hard against that and tell me that I'm making myself worse, well, first of all, they're wrong about that. But secondly, I'll just say, you know what? I have a limited time left, and I don't want to spend all of that time just trying to stay alive. I want to spend some of that time trying to live and doing the things that make life enjoyable for me. And part of those things are enjoying a certain thing in a meal, or a certain thing I like to drink. So life is not always about staying alive as long as you can. Life is also about enjoying the life we have. And sometimes that just means doing things that we enjoy doing for the simple joy of doing them. And I don't know about the chiropractic. The one thing I thought of is, you could tell them it's making you worse, or it hurts you. Because the one time I used a chiropractor, it made my back worse than when I went in, and I've never been to one since. You could say, you know what, I really don't want to do that anymore. It really hurts me. That's one idea.
I also have like some facet problems with my back, and the only reason for the chiro that I haven't just given in and tried it is that I have a pain doctor, and they were like, no chiropractor for you, because I asked them. And so I'm like, I'm not going to do it because my pain doctor was like, you cannot do it for your spine. But it's just like, it never stops. These people never stop. It's like when you go to the store with the wheelchair, and there's always some asshole who wants to grab your wheelchair, or there's always some asshole who is taking the handicap spots. There's always some asshole. Like, it never ends. And it's exhausting, and I don't...
Matt, you've been through some health challenges. What are your thoughts on how to deal with this?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. Mine start off really nice and don't end that way. The thing to remember is that the people who are making these recommendations for you, they're desperate and they want you to survive and thrive. And so the road to hell being paved with good intentions, that's what's happening here. It's one of those things where, as an atheist, when I find out that someone is ill or terminal, I don't have the same platitudes that religious people. I can't say, oh, it's all part of God's plan and all things work together for the glory of God. And, I don't get to pretend like you're going to go off to heaven and be in a better place, or that if you pray, maybe God will heal it. I have access to none of that. But they're in a similar situation because they're devoid of actual understanding of science and medicine. And so what I've done in the past, and what I'd recommend, is start off by saying, thank you for your concern. I'm going to listen to my doctors. And you may have to say that 100 times. Thank you for your concern. I'm going to listen to my doctors. And if they're like, oh, but this alternative treatment, it really works. And you're like, if it really works, it could interfere with the medical treatments that my doctors have already prescribed. And I don't want to interfere with those treatments. And then they'll turn around and say, well, this one can't interfere with it. Then my understanding is that it's probably not doing enough or anything. And I don't want to still take the risk of interfering with the treatment plan that the medical experts have come up with. Oh, well, you're just listening to Western medicine and you're dismissing all this other stuff. When they get to that point, then I have them listen to Storm by Tim Minchin. And then I start telling them, I appreciate your concern. I'm not interested in medical advice. I'm not interested in unsolicited medical advice. I'm going to listen to my doctors. And if it continues after that, then my answer is, shut the fuck up. That is alternative medicine quackery. I realize that you're desperate and trying to help, but now all you're doing is pissing me off. And do you really think that that's a good way to do this? And then they'll stop, maybe.
But those are great ways to talk to them about it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that. I usually just kind of passively sit there and try to, I don't know. I don't, but yeah,
it's difficult.
Those are great things to say.
It's tough because you don't want the confrontation, and you're trying to be a peacemaker. It sounds like that's what you probably are, but it's your life. It's your life. It's the only one you have, and you're struggling enough with your medical issues. You don't need well-meaning people making it worse. And yeah, I think Matt's advice is excellent in that just push back against it and remind them, this is my life and I'm doing the best I can with it. I'm going to trust my doctors. I appreciate your concern. Now pass the ice cream.
Also, find yourself an advocate to do the sorts of things like this that either you don't want to do, or if you get to a point where you can't, you trust them to do it. Like if I'm in a coma tomorrow, or if I'm unable to communicate starting tomorrow, I completely trust that Arden's got my back and is going to have them do the things that are wisest and smartest and scientific. And even if she doesn't, she's probably got a good reason to take me out anyway. So I'll just let her do it, because she's listening right now. Could end the show if she wanted to.
Get all that money.
Yeah, that's right. Have yourself an advocate who you trust, who's willing to stand up for you when you can't, and use that if like there are times when you could stand up for yourself, but you're too fucking tired. I don't want to deal with this again. And get yourself the kind of advocate to be like, don't worry. I'll sit here quietly in the room and never say a word until you give me the nod. And then I will escort these people out of your face. She needs some rest. We need to leave her alone now. She needs some rest. All you're doing is working her up.
I could probably sit down with my sisters and some of my cousins and ask if I could have them as like pseudo bodyguards for that kind of purpose. Just run interference with some of the other family. That might help.
I hope it doesn't get to this, but realize that if it does get bad enough, you may need legal paperwork, someone with the power of attorney to make the medical decisions for you. If you don't think it'll get there, I'm not here to give legal advice. If you don't think it's going to get that bad, then, obviously you wouldn't need it. But if I was in a position where there was fighting in my family between two groups of people who wanted to do right by me, but one of them was a group of confused buffoons who were into pseudoscience and the other one were rational, I would drop legal paper to make sure the rational people got to make the decisions for me.
Thank you guys. It's a lot of food for thought. And I'm definitely gonna try a lot of those things. So thank you guys so much.
Best of luck to you.
Thanks, Emily.
Hang in there, girl.
Best of luck. And check back in with us,
Yeah.
Let us know how it goes. And you might find, I know Emily's off the line now, but Emily might find a better way to handle this, something that works better for her family that we would be able to then share with other people. If there's anything that Dave and I have been, kind of working to do, is get information out to the people who need it. In my case, I joke that even though I wasn't Catholic, I did enough, I understood it enough and I did enough harm while I was a believer that I'm doing penance now, kind of leading people away from it. But, we're both here to say there's this vast community of secularists, of rationalists, of free thinkers, of skeptics, of humanists, and they have access to countless lifetimes of lived information on how to deal in a world where they are the ostracized, where they are the targets, where they are the victims, where they are the abused at the hands of religious privilege and religious doctrine. And in many cases, formal religion doesn't enter into it, just general irrationality, a lack of skepticism, you know what, I heard some good stuff about homeopathy without ever looking into it and saying, oh, wait, it's nonsense. It's about like curing like when that's not true. It's about pretending that water has memory when that's not true. It's been tested repeatedly and shown no benefit. And yet, right up to the current King of England, people are advocating for homeopathy. It's nonsense. Of all the things that we've tested and know are nonsense, it's way up at the top of the list, and yet it's incredibly popular. Why? Because it's water. Because it can't do anything. Because the only benefit from homeopathy is a placebo effect, which, by the way, can make you better. Not just feel better, better. But that's not medical efficacy. And that's not how we determine the effectiveness of a treatment, as to whether or not it can trigger a placebo, in fact, that can make somebody better. All right. Loads of callers here. John in Montana, who's an atheist, pronouns are him. Welcome, John. You're on the line live.
Good evening, gentlemen. That last call is one of the reasons you two are two of the best three people on this type of show. And the third one I would say is a guy that's probably doing production right now, and that's Jimmy Snow. But
no,
so my hat goes off
Jimmy's
to you
not
guys.
producing.
He's not.
No, Arden's producing.
Oh my God. Oh well, good for Arden.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, Jimmy, Dave, and you, Matt, are I I watch a lot of these shows, both on the line and the ACA, and I have to say the three of you do the best job. And I say that because you don't normally talk over each other. You let the person finish their thought unless they've screwed up.
Maybe. Yeah.
And you don't ramble on with your answers. Anyway, that's enough.
I think all of
accolades
those
for you
things are
guys.
false, but I'll just take it and let
Thank
you go on.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's my dilemma, Matt.
Okay.
I certainly buy into the idea that you don't choose to believe, but in a discussion with my daughter this past week, she brought up a situation that she had been involved in some years back where she feels she did choose to believe something.
Okay.
And let me explain a little bit. She was a dance teacher. She had a young niece die of cancer not too long before this, and she's trying to prepare for a recital, trying to pick some music, doesn't know what to pick. And they were talking about Kelsey. She and her mother were talking about Kelsey. That was the niece that died. And suddenly the radio comes on and starts playing a song, and that was the song they were going to use for that particular dance. Now, my daughter says she chose to believe that there was some energy out there from her dead niece that turned that radio on and provided that answer. And she said, I choose to believe that over anything else. So I was stymied. I didn't know what to say to her.
Yeah. So my position is that you can't choose in a simplistic way, just like in the absence of anything else, just say, I'm going to believe this. And so what happened was she had an experience that she didn't have an explanation for, but she finds it compelling that it's possible for someone who's died to communicate with the living. She was already convinced to some extent that this was a possibility or whatever. And so she linked those things. It's not just she didn't just decide to believe that. She became convinced because somebody else had already convinced her to some degree, maybe not pushing it over the edge, but giving enough evidence that the dead have some way of communicating with the living. She had to believe these things were possible before she even got to consider them as a candidate explanation for what happened. Does that make sense?
Well, that does make sense. I guess I'd have to pursue that with her.
Yeah.
She probably is gonna. I don't know. I'm assuming she's gonna. No. Nobody's ever convinced me that's true. But I guess the question is then, why do you believe it's true? I don't know.
Well, it doesn't necessarily even mean that. It doesn't necessarily mean that she had to believe it's true. She just had to be convinced that that was a candidate explanation, that was one of the possible ones. And so what happens is, this is why I'm so frequently advocating for exercising skepticism and caution, because you could begin to believe something is possible when it's not. And if you're convinced it's possible and you're saying, hey, I'm not saying it's true, I'm just saying it's possible, then when you run up against things that could be a candidate explanation for, if it were true, all of a sudden possibility turns to, hey, we need to consider this as an option. And you consider it as an option long before you should, because you become convinced that it should be an option. So it doesn't even necessarily have to be that she was convinced it's true. She's convinced that this is one candidate explanation for what happened. Another candidate explanation is that a song came on the radio, coincidentally, that resonated with her, and her brain decided that it was more likely that this was energy from her dead niece than it was energy from her brain. And while she can continue to act that way forever, if you were to say, oh, which is probably what led to the conversation, do you have any way of showing that it's true? She's like, nope, I just choose to believe it. But that's not really what happened. What she's choosing to do is not defend it. That's what she's choosing to do. And that's often a defense mechanism.
Well, yeah, can I clarify something?
Sure.
Supposedly, she said the radio wasn't turned on.
Okay, so what? That has nothing to do with whether or not she chose
that's
to
what I
believe.
said.
She could say the radio
go
was
ahead.
turned off, the radio was unplugged, and it started playing Jesus Loves Me, and that wouldn't prove that a God did it, and it wouldn't prove that she chose her belief. What it is she's not a rational actor. None of us are in every situation. And she decided in her limited capacity to investigate the radio, the song, and everything else, she was just more comfortable going with, here's what likely happened. And she can choose to act that way, but if she's convinced, she became convinced for a reason.
Yeah, all of us have had situations that we can't explain. All of us have. And those of us that
absolutely.
would be, and so someone like her who might be predisposed to try to find an explanation rather than just say, wow, that's interesting, because that's how I would react. Oh, that's what a coincidence. I'll put that in the bucket of things that I don't understand and move right along. I wouldn't need to find some explanation that I don't have evidence for. So in and of itself, that one event is not that harmful in terms of, did it hurt anyone for her to think that her niece was sending her a message from the dead? Possibly not. But the problem is, if you allow yourself to start believing things without evidence and you set your skepticism aside and rational thinking aside, then you've opened yourself up to maybe some more harmful ideas that might come along. So to me, it's always better to operate from the position of, you know what, I don't know what that is, but I'm not going to make up something that doesn't make sense just to give myself an answer that I would like to have, or some explanation that I wish it were true. For whatever reason, she felt the need to have communication from her niece. That's not something I've ever felt the need for. I've lost friends and family members that I've never once felt the need to get some message from them from beyond the other side. If she's needing that, there's a reason she's needing that. And that's, to me, the more concerning part of this, is that she would be open to things down the line that might be a little more nefarious in terms of quote unquote choosing to believe something without evidence.
Well, and she is not a Christian. I don't know if she would label herself as atheist, but she doesn't practice any religion. I would say if she was asked, she'd probably say she's agnostic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it kind of, I think you guys have given me a little bit of an avenue here to discuss it some more with her, because she's certainly open to it.
Let me give you one more thing.
Sure.
What difference does it make whether she can or did choose to believe this? What matters most is whether or not it's true. And she either gives a shit about whether or not it's true, or she doesn't. And if she doesn't give a shit about whether or not it's true, then it doesn't matter whether she actually chose or can chose. Instead of having the argument about whether or not it's possible, whether or not doxastic volunteerism, the ability to discreetly choose a belief proposition or accept a belief proposition, is true, why have that conversation at all? Why not focus on, hey, do you care whether or not this is true? Because if she doesn't, every other conversation is a waste of time. And if she does, it doesn't matter whether she chose this or not.
Mm-hmm.
True. But I'm blaming you, Matt, for me getting into this in the first place.
That's fine.
Is that okay?
I can take it. Yeah. As a matter of fact, you should tell me I'm done and hang up on me.
You know what, Matt? You're done.
I'm well aware.
Oh,
Thanks so much, John. Appreciate the call. We haven't done that in a while. Happy to have people hang up on me since I do it often enough.
mhm.
All right, we're continuing on. It's atheist call night so far, but we're hoping to get some theists in here shortly. PJ is an atheist in Illinois, pronouns are he, him, and has a perspective on the Latino community. So welcome, PJ. You're on the line live.
Hey, how you doing, Matt and Dave?
Hey, PJ.
Doing well.
Oh, great. I heard you last Sunday talking to a caller about the Latino community. We are one of the largest believers there is, calling from Mexico all the way to South America. Came to my attention in South America right now. There's a evangelicals group called the New Tribe Missionary. They've been trying to break the line to get to the indigenous people because they wanted to bring to their side, because they're running low in believers now. But my question was to you guys, I know we don't have a strong atheist spokespersons in our community in whatsoever shape or form. And I'm always hanged up in that I can't help my family or my friends in other parts of the country because they're very so tight on the in churches and in all these places. Hello?
Yep, sorry, I was muted. Okay. I'm not quite sure what you're specifically looking at or for from us.
No, it's just a thought with this the evangelicals doing, just going on in different parts of the countries, and we're not having an atheist voice. I don't. Probably you guys might know more speaking Spanish atheists than we do, but we don't have no spokers, nobody to defend our families, and trying to promote atheists.
So
in these places.
Are you familiar with Hispanic American Freethinkers, hafree.org?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Let me get it.
I believe it's hafree.org. I just put the link in the list. I don't know I don't know what they're up to. I don't know how active they are right now. My understanding, David Tamayo either founded it or was the director, and hopefully, or perhaps still is. I don't even know. It's been so long since David and I have a chance to speak on it. I'm going to reach out to David right now on Facebook Messenger.
Sorry.
Yeah, there are some atheists in the Latino community I know of. I don't know if they would call themselves a leader, an atheist leader to the Latinos, but I understand your concern, PJ, with the strong religious component in that community. Yeah, it's a problem.
It's ridiculous, if we, if you look at it, the point is everything has to do with religion. Whether you go to Puerto Rico, I'm from Puerto Rico, and it's just everybody's brainwashed. They not even read the Bible. It's all whatever they tell them. This is what we got to do. You ask them simple questions, and oh no, sorry, that's what my mom told me, and I won't listen to you. I'm like, just read the Bible. You all open your eyes yourselves.
You be a leader.
And it's been a struggle for years.
Yeah, you be a leader. You step up and begin to equip yourself.
Oh no, I have. I have.
Yeah.
It's just
keep doing that.
It's just too many people, and if I can find these atheists to help, that'll be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things is that, and I did just send a message to David Tamayo about Hispanic American Freethinkers, so hafree.org. You can also reach them at their contact information, find out if the organization is still active and focused on things, if they're busy with the mission. I would also recommend reaching out to the national organizations. like American Atheists, American Humanists, other organizations like that, to see what they're doing for the Latino community, for the Hispanic American community. It's difficult to do outreach. For example, I live in Austin, Texas. We have a massive Hispanic population.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go over to a particular part of town where there's a lot of Latinos and just walk around going, "Hey, are you still believing in Jesus? I'd like to help." And my Spanish is bad in the first place, and so there's a roadblock there on the language.
Yeah.
And so I'm not the right person to do it. But what I can do, and what I will do, and what we will continue to do here, is when there are people who are trying to do good, we will get them on the shows. We'll get them on either as a sit-in guest if we can, or to call in and update us and find out what's going on. Because first of all, I barely know how to fix things that are going on in my own house, let alone race relations and ethnic relations. And how do we get more women involved? How do we get more Hispanic Americans involved? How do we get more African Americans involved? How do we get ex-Muslims? How do we get ex-Hindus? Where's the outreach at? All I'm currently doing. Go ahead.
Matt, don't cut yourself off, because you reached, and you and Dave reached to me. I feel alone in this world, and I found this program, and it just helped me a lot. You know what I mean, in ways speaking to my friends and family, and you look in better ways that I can help people. It's a sickness to me. I look it up like a sickness.
Yeah,
and I wish I can just be. Right.
I get why you look at it that way. I want to caution you to make sure that you aren't labeling a sickness, and certainly not mental health. It's not a mental illness. It's just people being wrong. I was wrong. I didn't get cured. I got wiser, not better. So I just want to exercise some caution there.
Smarter. You didn't get smarter. Your intelligence level was the same when you're a believer.
I'm smarter, but my IQ didn't go up.
Yeah, exactly. Your IQ didn't change, but you got, as you said, wiser and more informed is the better thing to say, that we just got more informed. We quit believing bad ideas, and that's what they're doing. And these people that are evangelizing in the other countries, that's what they know to do. They need to grow their group, and that's the only way they can grow it. And they're going to other countries because they're losing ground here. And the tide is turning very, very slowly in terms of people who call themselves religious, even in other countries. But it's at glacial speed, and it can be frustrating at times to see that, because you kind of want to shake everyone and say, wake up. But we didn't wake up overnight.
Yeah.
I didn't wake up overnight. It took me a long, long time to come to my senses, so to speak. So it's going to take other people that as well.
Yeah, just too short. I know you guys got more callers. I know, same thing with me. I was a Pentecostal for almost 10 years. When I was growing up in Puerto Rico, it was all about God, and then my mom, she was a Catholic, and she's like, no, don't go to the denomination, you stay here Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that, and then I started thinking to myself, start reading, doing research, and it just opened my eyes and said, there's something wrong with this.
Yeah,
right.
And after that, it's just I keep bringing it. My two kids, I raised my two kids to be atheists, and I tell them to later on read the Bible, because I don't want them to make their own decisions in life. But I tell them read it as like a history. I don't know how to say that word in English. And just read it as poetry instead of taking it literally.
Yeah.
Just to give you a knowledge of how people used to think back in the days. And so I'm happy the day I die, I'm gonna leave these two kids knowing better than I did growing up. So that's what I want for my family.
I want to read you part of an email that I got. I'm not going to give out the person's name. I haven't had a chance to respond to this. So this is an email from Leonardo. So hopefully you'll see this. He says, hope this email finds you well. I'll be as succinct as possible, because I'm sure you get a lot of rubbish daily, and my time isn't overly abundant either. I've been following your work for a while, and I heard you saying it's hard to reach Black or Spanish speaking communities. I'm also surprised you guys, by that, he's referring to AXP, the line, etc. Haven't thought of having a Spanish edition sister show, being the language, this is the second most spoken language in the US and globally. And so to answer that, we've definitely thought of it. We've also thought about having, we've got subtitles on now, and Google's gotten much better at it so that we don't have to have, sign language interpreters and things like that. There are people in other countries who are mirroring videos, usually clips, and they are adding Spanish subtitles. It may be possible, and it's something that I'd like to see for us to do on the line. I'm kind of waiting to see if Google just does it, because right now closed captioning appears on videos, and it's not perfect, but it's incredibly good automatically. And I'm waiting to see if Google just adds that to where you can watch this with translations to Spanish and other languages. Because while I would love to leverage people like PJ or Leonardo or David Tamayo to see how we can better do this, I think the amount of effort that smaller organizations can put towards this may in fact be wasted, considering what the large organizations like Google and others are doing to try to get it. I mean, I've got Google Translate on everything. It can't be that long before. As a matter of fact, today is March 15th, 2023. If you're watching this video or this clip and there are Spanish subtitles available for you at the time that you're watching it, comment down below so that we know when it changed, so that everybody started having access to it. I'm hoping that kind of thing becomes popular really quickly.
Sweet. That'll be a good. Man, I'm telling you guys, all of you guys are helping me a lot. I don't feel alone anymore. And thank you very much, guys. I mean, let's see if we can spread this to the whole Spanish community. And I'm going to do my part trying to send videos of you guys to them and hopefully be ready by that time it gets there.
Awesome.
Keep up the good work,
Gracias, PJ. Have a good night.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Be safe. Adios, camaraderos.
Adios.
Adios.
Which, by the way, despite the fact that means go with God, doesn't mean we're saying, we're talking in chat. They're evaluating my pronunciation. Somebody said I pronounced Latino like a primo, and I was like, is that good or is that bad? And somebody else asked if I was better or worse than Peggy Hill. I took 2 years of Spanish when I was in high school, and
I took one, and it was I learned almost nothing.
Yeah,
so
I learned some. I don't remember much. I used to fake it when I was in the military because there weren't many people who spoke Spanish. But at the beginning of the Jane's Addiction album, Ritual de lo Habitual, there's someone who introduces them. And she comes out and she says something like, and I'm going to butcher this, but you guys can get it. Señoras y señoras, nosotros tenemos más influencia con sus hijos que tú tienes, pero los creamos. Creado y reado de Los Angeles, Juana Seducción. And then they start playing. And so that's the one that I used to fake without, introducing Jane's Addiction. If I wanted to convince somebody who didn't speak Spanish that I could speak Spanish, but
I have no idea
my Spanish is terrible. Basically, it says, ladies and gentlemen, others have more influence over your children than you do, or they have more influence over your children than you do, but they love them. Born and raised in Los Angeles, Jane's Addiction. But all right,
cool.
Let's stop pretending that I actually speak Spanish, and we'll move on to Faye in Australia. Pronouns are they, them. Faye, you are on the Hang Up live here on the line. Welcome.
Hi, Dave. Hi, Matt. How are you?
Hey, Faye.
I'm making it.
Wonderful. I just wanted to say before I start, thank you both for your work. I think it's a great job that you guys are doing, and
at least from this end of the world. I really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I appreciate you saying that.
My question is a little bit controversial. I'll give you a little bit of backstory. My father passed away from suicide 6.5 years ago, and it wasn't anything like kind of medical. It was all very much mental health problems.
Yeah.
And
very sorry to hear that.
It takes a while to kind of sorry, breathe.
You're fine.
It's taken me a while to kind of wrap my head around things and learn to understand it for myself. But as I slowly get better, I begin to question, just as I advocated for my grandmother medically assisted dying when she had cancer, whether that kind of treatment may be helpful for those who have very medically resistant mental health problems. I am struggling to find where I sit on it, because I've always been told by psychologists and psychiatrists and the like that suicide is never the option for mental health and you can always get better. And I look at my father and he couldn't get better. He took things into his own hands, and I guess I'm wondering where you guys sit on that. And yeah.
I'm sorry for your loss, Faye. I can tell it's still tough for you, and I'm really, really sorry. I have some thoughts on this, and I would say at the outset before I go on that my thoughts are open to change, and they're evolving as I learn more and hear more people's experiences. But I kind of, I think that I have a terminal disease, and some of you may have noticed me leaning back in the chair because I have to rest my head. My neck is losing strength, and that's a critical issue for me. It's gonna when this disease passes up into my head and neck area, that's when the shit gets real. But I've always said, since I've gotten this disease and started talking about dying out loud, that the quality of our life is more important than the quantity of days that we live, and that there are more important. Some things are more important than living, and that is living the life that we want to live on our terms, and a quality of life that we're satisfied with. I've said from the outset that when my quality of life gets to a place where I'm no longer content with what that looks like for me, that I will be ready to go. And that I move that line constantly. I may say now, when it gets to point X, when I can no longer do X, then I'm ready to turn the light out. And I may change my mind when I get there and say, well, you know what? I've still got this that I can do, so I'm going to hang on a little longer. Mental health is an issue that's completely different because it's hard to see, it's hard to measure. I don't pretend to know much of anything about it, but I do know that people with mental health struggles live in a great deal of pain, live with a great deal of pain. It's obvious when you talk to them that they're in pain. And for those of us who live around them, there can be a place, and this is the controversial part of this, there can be a point to where we say to them, I need you to stay alive, even though you're in pain, because for you to go is going to cause me pain. And I would rather you be in pain than me be in pain. And that's a little simplistic the way I stated it. And I wouldn't accuse anyone of feeling that way or saying those things. I'm reminded of a guest that we had on a show that I used to have a few months ago, and we were doing a show about death and dying and medical assisted death and those kind of issues. And he had lost his sister to suicide, and she had a host of physical and mental health issues. And she was quite young, in her 30s, and she had decided, you know what, I just do not want to live any longer. And he had to come to terms with whether he was okay with that or not. And as her brother, and he came to the place where he realized that for him to try to convince her to not take her own life was more about his comfort than it was about her comfort. And that was one example in one family and how they dealt with it. And everyone has to do it their own way. But I think what's what you're saying, Faye, and what I heard you're asking, because you said it's a controversial take, and it is, because this whole medical aid in dying thing, everyone says it's a slippery slope. And what do you say to the teenager whose girlfriend broke up and he's depressed and he wants to kill himself? That's another issue altogether. And so I don't know. It's a complicated issue, and mental health is a complicated part of that issue, and living and dying is complex. I don't know. Again, I didn't really give you an answer on this. I just kind of pontificated on some of the thoughts I've been having in the last few months around this issue. I don't know if that's helpful or not, or terrible. I don't know.
Yeah. You've basically been saying kind of the thoughts that I've been trying to deal with, and I very much did the same thing. I was quite young. I was 22 when this happened, and I went through the process of, look, just hang on, just a little bit more, and we'll make it through this together. And I now look back on that, and I can see that he was in pain, and putting myself in his shoes and realizing that it was quite selfish of me to do that. And I put him through more pain, or I elongated that pain because of my selfishness. And I now look at things and go, I can understand that, in some cases it's not exactly best to go, hey, you've got a mental illness, you can have complete bodily autonomy at all points, for lack of a better phrase. But I think if I was more open to that idea back then, that it might have helped.
This is a subject that I've spent a lot of time thinking about and struggling with. And I don't for a second think there's a clear answer across the board. I think there aren't even clear answers if you get it down to just situational. I've never, no matter what mental issues I may or may not have, I've never struggled with suicidal ideations, or never even seriously considered it in my life. I'm fortunate that way, because I know and have lived with people who have had those sorts of thoughts at different times. And I'm not going to pretend to understand them, but I can imagine scenarios, both health related and otherwise, where I would prefer death to continued living. Most of them are pretty far-fetched, fanciful things that are unlikely to happen apart from health issues. And I don't know if I were actually in one of those situations where I would have imagined suicide as an option, what I would actually do. I don't know if I have the capacity to do it. It may be that my love of life overrides everything. I don't know. And so it's very, very difficult for me to judge anyone. I've heard people, and I've done it myself in the past, talk about someone who took their own life and say, oh, they took the coward's way out. And I'm like, I can't think in those terms anymore. I've seen too much from too many people. And I think almost most people, unless they have like some religious prohibition against it, I think most people, if they were honest with themselves, would say there is some degree of a medical condition where your quality of life is so poor that it is completely understandable that continuing to exist isn't desirable. We've all seen it. We've seen it in people just right before they die who are absolutely ready to go. And so realizing that possibility, we can then begin extending it. Now it's a matter of where do we draw the line? And the concern, which is a very real concern, is that we will slippery slope our way down to, well, hey, you've got bodily autonomy. Why shouldn't you just be free? And why shouldn't people be supportive of you wanting to end your life at any point? And I think that overlooks some things, because I also know that while there are situations where I would say it was the most reasonable thing, it would be to want to die. I also recognize that on the other end of that timeline are some people who would willingly terminate their life, but if they remained alive, would then be able to get the help that makes them glad that they did not.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's difficult to find the place where you draw the line, but where there is an extremely high confidence that there's nothing that's going to happen that would make you glad you didn't. That's the point at which I'm more okay with it. I'm still in favor of bodily autonomy. What I want is for people to get the help they need, whether that is counseling, therapy, medicine, or assistance in dying. Analyzing and figuring out what that need is and when and where we draw a line is incredibly difficult, but we're never going to be able to solve these hard questions as long as there's a contingent of the population that think their magical governor of the universe is going to say, no, you can't ever do that. Just like, I think divorce is one of the best things that some people can do. My divorce worked out great. If I were Catholic, I'd have to stay married. I think the oversimplification done by religion, both with regard to marriage and souls and soulmates and death and dying and mental illness, right down to calling it demonic possession, that spills over even to people who aren't part of those religions. That culturally, we naturally have an aversion generally against dying, and then culturally we add to that in order to keep the other people who might not have that same aversion from causing problems for their loved ones. And so some of it stems from religion, some of it stems from who we are. But at the end of the day, it should be a personal decision governed by responsible, secular medical ethics. And apart from that, I'm staying the fuck out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was about to say before you mentioned it that I think religion very much permeates, even to a little bit of an extent, kind of secular society, in that Australia, at least from my experience, has been a pretty secular. We don't care that much about religion, and some of our politicians may be a bit funny about it, but for the most part, we don't particularly care. It's a live and let live kind of place. But with things like assisted death and that sort of stuff, we kind of took a while to wrap our heads around it. And it'd be nice to see it fully permeated from society. So yeah. Thank you guys for your thoughts. I really do appreciate it.
I want to say also, Faye, I hope you're okay and you're kind to yourself. You said that you, looking back, saw that you maybe were selfish in the way that you handled things with your father, but I just hope you're okay with, your understanding of things now, and that you're not beating yourself up, and that you're understanding you were just working from the information you had and the ideas you had. And it sounds like you're growing and maturing, and not maturing, but evolving in some thought processes there. As I know Matt said, and certainly I am too. I used to say that that's the selfish way out and the coward's way out. And I don't think that way anymore. I think that we've already said that, but I think we need to change the way we look at life and death, and talk more openly about death as not the bad boogeyman that we always say it is. And there's nobody that loves life more than me. I love every minute of it, and I'm not ready for it to end. But at the same time, when the quality that the life I love gets to a place where it's no longer sustainable for me, no longer something I can stomach, then I'm not afraid to say it's time to go. And so I hope you're okay and kind to yourself in the way that you thought things back 6.5 years ago.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm going through some pretty heavy therapy even still, so I'm getting there slowly, but
good.
Yeah, one day at a time, I guess.
That's all we can do.
Yeah. Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Faye.
Tough
Have a great
subject.
show.
Thank you for calling in. That's important to talk about that. So appreciate your call.
So yeah. Now, first of all, I got to thank Alex for agreeing to come in and screen phone calls for us today. It's interesting. We didn't get theistic callers. I saw one theistic caller, but they dropped, and I think there was another one. I think that just when you start talking about subjects like this, there's a lot of atheists who, like I mentioned, there's a lot of difficulty in what the hell do I say? I had platitudes when I was a believer, and now I can just sit here and go, gosh, I'm so sorry that happened. And none of that seems particularly satisfying. But let me make a couple quick announcements, and then we will move on to Super Chats for today. First of all, I have a debate on Friday that I didn't have last Saturday. Basically, I woke up Saturday and was not in the space to do a debate at 11 a.m. or noon or whatever time it was. So this time it's actually going to be Friday, I think, at noon. So I'm going to spend, I'm not going to do another Cus I Wanna show to do more debate prep. But I will be engaging in a debate on Is Islam True on Modern Day Debates Friday at, I think, noon. Also, upcoming on the line, the network you're tuned into right now, that you're going to be tuned into on a regular basis, multiple times a week for the rest of your life. Just buckle up, saddle in. You're going to be doing it. Tomorrow on the Transatlantic Call-In Show, Arden and Nominal Naomi will be here. Jimmy and myself will be on the Sunday show. John Gleason and Jerry Williams will be on Skeptalk on Monday. John Gleason being Godless Engineer, for those who don't know. HOSTility, we have yet to determine who's actually going to be there. But my guest next week on the Hang Up, Vice Rhino. And for those of you who aren't aware, Vice Rhino is an anagram of Eric Hovind, which is how he got that name. And it tells you a little bit about the kind of stuff that he's been doing on YouTube. It's been a while since we've had him on. I look forward to speaking with him. So make sure you tune in all the way up to next week. And now it's your super chats. And Jimmy's told me that if I don't say this, he's just going to fire me. And that is, here on the line, we will always be taking calls on all the shows that are tied to the network. But we are expanding beyond that. We are thinking about bigger and better things, about making the network everything that it can be to the secular community at large, including meetups and a potential community center here in the Austin area. And probably, if that works out, there's no stopping us. We can take over anything. But here on the Hang Up, I read all the super chats that are $10 or over. I don't care if there's none or 500. I'll just sit here until all of them are done. But Dave may get tired of this horse shit in a little bit. We're going to alternate and don't want to wear him out too much. But thankfully, you guys have donated big and in big numbers. So we're going to alternate in reading these until Dave has to leave, until we're finished, or until we both pass out, I think. But, so starting here, 1999 from Tess. Thank you for your, thankful for you guys and all you do, Dave. You inspire me. And yeah.
Thank you, Tess.
That's, there's a lot of inspiration there for that. Although Tess somehow, we skipped some. We did. I'm going to fix this. The first one should have been Greg. Greg got in with $50 like normal. And
hey, Greg.
Greg, I owe you a drink, a hug, one of the first copies of the book. I'll give you my firstborn child. Because I can't.
We didn't actually skip anything. If you see the number 2, you'll see that Tess was actually the first super chat. We just have 2 pages today. So
holy moly.
Wow.
There's only 3 on the second page though. So
well, thank you for telling me, because now I have to go over to page 2. So there we go.
There you go.
Boom. I'm bad. So there's TACIS that we did. And then right after that should be, go ahead, Dave.
$10 from I Got Cookies. Hey, so good to see you again, Dave. Hope you're okay and glad to hear you got your nonprofit up and running. Oh, hello, Matt.
Hi, Jen.
And actually, by the way, we do have it up and running. We've got our tax ID number now. We can actually receive donations pending. There's a process where it becomes official, but we're told that we've got our tax ID number. We're cooking. We're cooking. I Got Cookies. So thank you.
Sweet. So we got 2 in a row from Greg. One of them I already put up there, but this one just said, thanks for the great guest. And my answer is, you're welcome. And you're right.
$10 from Christian Beto. This story of YouTube guy with cancer reminds me of my dad, who had people at my old church tell him very similar things with his health, and it made him hate himself. So horrible. Thanks for speaking out. I'm infuriated that happened to your dad, and I'm very sorry. And that's, man, we got to push back against this religious intrusion in the healthcare system.
Yes. 999 from Darren Wright. Much love to you, Dave and Matt. Thankful for both of you. Keep doing the work you do. Dave, I'm so excited about your charity, and I have no doubt it'll be a huge thing for so many people battling ALS. I'm excited and thrilled too. I hope that I never find myself in that situation, but knowing, having dealt with this type of stuff with Ed Brayton and others, I'm a huge advocate for secular, sound medical advice and medical action. Get the religions out of it. Stop standing in the way of people. Help the people for whom assisted death is the right choice. Make that choice, and help the people for whom it's not the right choice realize that it's not the right choice. We can help everybody, and it's not, doesn't mean there's easy answers, but we can do it.
$10 from RPG Debunks. The idea that the Christian God needs to test us makes no sense. This being is supposed to be omniscient. One would think this being wouldn't need to test us, but apparently omniscience has limits. Yes, apparently it does.
It's limited. Yeah, I see that. $10 from Elliot Webb. I love you, Dave. My brother passed away last year from cancer. It's impossible to describe how much your story, Dying Out Loud, that GD show, and your book helped me. I can't thank you enough. Hi, Matt. Fuck you, Jimmy. It's not just fuck you, Jimmy. It's go fuck yourself, Jimmy. I mean, you got to get it right. Otherwise, it sounds like you're being mean. If you say go fuck yourself, Jimmy, that sounds like love, because that's the way Jimmy hears go fuck yourself. But fuck you, Jimmy, could be taken either way.
He'll get it right next time. Thank you for that, Elliot. I appreciate you saying that. I really do.
Thanks so much, Elliot.
$19.99 from Mard Ingebretson. Try saying that real fast. Hey, Mard, love you. You met Mard at the beach?
Yep. $10 from Jad T. Matt, the Christian God ended the life innocent. The Christian God ended the life innocent children in the Bible, but Christians who are
children, probably, yeah.
Yeah, probably, who are pro-life also think he is perfectly moral and can't do wrong. Why would anyone defend this? Because they believe it's true. It doesn't have to make sense. Here's the thing. There's an old Bill Cosby routine that I remember hearing where the punchline is, I brought you into this world, I can take you out. And everybody laughs. And basically it's about him beating his kids. And because all of that was normal back then and normal to everybody else, none of us thought a thing about it. I laughed my butt off. I sat there next to my dad, who had probably just beaten me with a razor strap within the last, month or so for something that I did. And we both laughed at that. When you're in it, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a religious doctrine or a particular mindset that you're convinced is the way the world works, it is very, very difficult to see outside of that. And it can twist things to where even abuse feels like and gets labeled as love. My dad didn't hate me. To my knowledge, my dad's never really hated me. There are probably times where he hasn't liked me very much, but he's never hated me. And he never wanted to actually do terrible physical harm to me. But I got the shit knocked out of me on a couple of occasions. Sometimes it was for something I did. Sometimes it wasn't necessarily. But his thinking, and it rained down on me, along with the razor strap, was this is what needs to happen to keep my child from going astray. It's like if you put your hand too close to the stove and they swatted it to get it away, they view that as simply educational and instructive and necessary. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about physically abusing a child or this notion about God's superiority and moral purity. If God is the arbiter of everything that's good and God takes an action, then that action must be good whether you understand it or not. And it's very likely that you, as a fallen creature, deceived by Satan, where God has given you over to a reprobate mind, are wrong about your assessment of God. And once that gets into your head, you can make excuses for anything. Or, to quote Voltaire, those that can be convinced to believe absurdities can be convinced to commit atrocities.
$10 from Nutclopers. I'm sure there's something there that I'm not saying right. I'll support the line if the next goal reward is the roast of Jimmy Snow, but instead of insults, just an hour of people complimenting him.
Oh my gosh.
I'll have you
I don't
guys
think he
know,
could take
I
it.
sent that to Jimmy, and he said, "I'd rather die."
Yeah. I can pretty much, knowing him, I would not want to do that. I like Jimmy too much to actually do that because I've seen how he reacts to this. Like, go back and watch the end of the birthday episode where I said nice things. I think he was legitimately mad at me for a little while. He couldn't stay mad because it's hard to stay mad when people are saying nice things. But yeah, let's not do that. Oh, sorry. I keep getting my notepad in the way of my super chat thing. 1999 from Tess. Dave, you inspire me. Thank you both for all you do.
Well, thank you,
Tess.
Two from Tess.
Yep.
Canadian $11 from Michael Briggs. Best wishes from Canada. Thank you, Michael.
$10 from Dante Verona. Can Dorothy really still believe in the wizard after seeing The Man Behind the Curtain? Can she choose to believe that? She cannot. She became convinced it's not a willful act. She learned too much. I concur.
Yep.
But Dorothy, in order to protect herself, could invent a fiction where the man behind the curtain was only a mechanism being used by the actual wizard. It's amazing the links that a human mind can go to engage in some self-deception.
$10 from Chad T. To both speakers, if you had to choose one, what argument would be most persuasive to you for the existence of God? Yeah, I've been asked that before. Personally, I don't see a persuasive argument for the existence of God. The only one that I could see anyone actually using is their personal experience, but that's anecdotal and no evidence. So honestly, I don't see a persuasive argument for the existence of God. Matt, you've heard way more than I have.
I don't either. Why is there something rather than nothing is probably my go-to for answering this. There is no good argument for it, but I do understand the appeal. I understand that it seemed all of the grandeur of everything seems unlikely as the result of simple chance. But then when you realize
right.
Yeah. But when you realize that it's not simple chance, but a particular sequence of happenings controlled by and dictated by physics that lead to chemistry and everything else, all of a sudden chance has less work to do for there to be order and all the things that we see. $10 from Larry Fishman. Dave, I get that you're a rational man and don't believe in alternative medicine, but if you considered trying methamphetamine.
I haven't tried that yet, so no, I haven't gone there. $9.99 from DJ. Hi, another Spanish speaker here. and just want to say that the access to information of this kind is not ubiquitous as it is in English. Thank you for everything you do for skeptics like me.
Thank you, DJ. Here we go. $27.99 in alleged money from Canada from Nilly Wilson. Dave, so great to see you on the show. I'm the one who messaged you on Patreon about the next time you would be in Canada. Hope to hear you and Matt will still be attending the conference in Sarnia. Hope I can attend. We will, Nilly. We will.
Yes, Nilly, I thank you for that message. I remember that. Yeah, I hope you're not too far. I know Canada is a pretty big country. So if you can make it over to Sarnia, we'd love to see you.
If you can,
Canada. $9.99 from Joe Stinkpot. That's Joe Pellerito. I know who that is. Hey, Joe. Thank you.
$9.99 from Shannon Matt and Dave, two of my favorite people in the whole world. Sending love, y'all, and everyone. Hope Arden is feeling better. And hi to Jimmy, too.
Oh, thank you, Shannon. Good to see you.
Arden is feeling better, but not a whole lot better.
She says, so, I am not. She's a trooper tonight. She's producing, and she's doing a great job. Thank you, Shannon. Good to see you.
Yeah, everybody out there. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. Let me get through all. We've only got like four super chats left to go. Although you guys could make it more.
$10 from Vishanti. Dave, thank you. I'm grateful to be on this planet at the same time as you. You've made a powerful difference in my life. Live long and prosper. I really appreciate that. I do hear that, and it just means so much to me when people tell me that. I'm a guy that just talks a lot, that's pretty much it. And so to know that I've made a difference for someone, it just means everything. It really does. And I'm getting emotional, so I'll stop talking.
Sweet. $9.99 for Melody Kate. We don't judge people who die of cancer. Why do we judge those who suicide? When the pain gets too great, I will go, and those who love me will understand. Pain is pain, mental or physical. I understand that, and generally speaking, I agree. The difference in many cases is whether or not that pain is treatable.
Mm-hmm.
And
there's
it may not.
Nuance. There's a lot of nuance there, and it's a tough subject, but it's definitely worth talking about. So thank you for that. $20 from Gabagool. Matt and Dave, thanks for the snot bubbles, man tears. Dave, you are a real inspiration, and you'll never be forgotten. Love, love, love. But that Fargan Icehole Bashtaj Jimmy can go farg himself.
Fargan Icehole.
Fargan Icehole.
That's from Johnny Dangerously, I believe.
Oh, I love I didn't do the Scottish accent properly.
$9.99 from Melody Kate. Believers made suicide a sin, so their believers don't do it to get to heaven. Yeah.
That's a fallacy, though, because the Christians I've run into in talking about death are more afraid of death than most of the atheists I know. So I don't know any believers who are in a hurry to get to heaven, oddly enough. But I appreciate the thought, Melody. $10 from I Shot the Shit. No, I Killed Earl. I knew this episode would make me cry. I am now a puddle. Thank you both for having these important conversations. Love you both. Thank you, Arden and Mods. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Thank you, I Killed Earl, for your message. Appreciate it. Sorry to make you cry.
$10 from Rose Red R10. Great show tonight. Dave, it's great to see you on the line. I hope your ventures are going well. Last I heard from your show, you were writing a book, and Matt, have fun on the debate Friday. Thanks, Rose. Yes, Dave. Tell us more about books.
Thank you, Rose. I'm working on the book called Dying Out Loud, and it's coming along okay. I'm traveling a little too much to devote the time I really need to. So yeah, it's gonna. I'm determined to have it out by the end of this year. So yeah. Alleged money from Canada, as Matt says. $69.69 from Kathleen Moncrief. Yay, I made it before the end. Nice. Hey, Kathleen, good to hear from you.
And boom, $10 from the Toaster Pirate. As someone who's tried 3 times to unalive myself, please intervene if someone else wants to. Most people are happy they failed. Even better, they're fully better. Mentally healthy. I'm happy I'm alive. I'm happy you're alive, Toaster Pirate. I will say that none of us should be speaking on behalf of most people or anything like that. But taking your message in the spirit in which it was rendered, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of people who have attempted suicide and regret it and are glad they're alive. There are others who are in different situations, and this should always be a personal thing. I'm thrilled that you're alive, not just so you can do a super chat, but because you're also thrilled that you're alive.
That's the point. Yeah. The fact that you're happy you're alive means that we're happy you're alive. It's that simple, but good for you, man.
And we got another last one. Let's see how many more last ones we can get.
$20 from General Comments. Dynamic duo. Great seeing you two co-hosting again. Come back again soon, Dave. I will, if Matt'll have me.
Yeah, I will have you. Anytime I got a free week and you got a free week,
we'll do it.
We'll wheel your ass in here. I'll keep having you on to talk about all. I can't wait until you go live with the other stuff. I can't wait to see you when I just saw you more recently than almost any of my other friends, and I can't wait till we're up at BajaCon. So
you're not coming to AACon, right?
I am not going to AACon.
Yeah, so I won't see you there. I think we're scheduled at the Secular Student Alliance in June, though. I'll be there. I think you're there in St. Louis.
Yes.
Anyway, I saw you on the schedule, so you may not know that, but you're going whether you know it or not.
I think I'm doing the Magic and Skepticism show at that convention.
Yeah, something. You're on the schedule. I saw it. I'll be speaking somewhere there. This is yours, I think.
Oh, is it?
I think so.
$10 Chad T. Matt, what was your best and worst debate? I'm not the right person to ask. I've said before, the first debate that I did, I believe, with Cliff Connectley, where I was sick and coming off, I wasn't very animated. I kind of just sat there and read my statement. And so performance-wise, it wasn't very good. Substantively wise, I think it was fine. But it's hard to be persuasive when you feel like shit. I'm not the one to ask who my worst and best is. That's going to be up to individuals. I don't tend to look at them as win-lose. For a while, I think the debate with Cy was one of my favorites. I think one of my favorites now wasn't even a formal debate, but just sitting down with Jordan Peterson and exposing some of his nonsense, especially as it relates to secular humanism. I think that may have turned out to be one of the most important things that I did. So that's probably on there as
that was a good
best or near best.
$10 from Ellipsis. Is this the line to go fuck yourself, Jimmy? Great show. Much appreciate. I don't know what that, I guess that's what they're supposed to say. Yeah.
I think so.
This is it. This is it.
$10 from Rose Red R10. Just another thought. I do work at a vet clinic, and we do euthanize for animals who are suffering, and no other way out than suffering. It's mercy. Why can't we do this for people who choose to? Yes. Having had to euthanize a couple of pets, I think it's a shame that we treat our pets better than we treat the humans around us we love on many occasions.
I've said that many times. We do.
Yeah, and not just on matters of death with dignity. There are things that we do to humans we wouldn't dream of doing to somebody's pet.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah. But there's no soul. There's not religion saying they have a soul that you're sending to the afterlife. So there's the religion component again.
Are you sure, Dave? There's a movie called All Dogs Go to Heaven that I watched.
Yeah.
I think it must be true.
It's not factual.
Okay.
$10 from Abel Medina. Hey, I've been watching for 8 years. Just want to say you guys are awesome. Even Jimmy, you need a Mexican engineer atheist who can speak Spanish to be on the show. Let me know. Hashtag Super Strawberry. No, you're done.
Wow. We got a lot of stuff in there, and we skipped Fergal Burgle Manergal Burgle. So
there's a lot in there.
Good job, Abel. Much appreciated. And here we go. $50 of alleged money from Canada from Eminence 18. I just tuned in. Glad to have this show to watch tonight. Thanks, Dave, for your amazing outlook on this world. I'll second that and third it. Thank you, Eminence 18. Oh, another one came in right here at the last minute.
Kathleen, Canadian $10 from Kathleen Moncrief again. Also, I started re-listening to Childish Things last night. That book is such a gift. Thank you. Oh, and F Jimmy.
That's fair.
Thank you,
I think
Kathleen.
Jimmy's looking to F.
I appreciate you enjoying my memoir.
Jimmy's DTF. But okay. That'll finish off our super chats. Thank you guys so much. First of all, let me remind everybody about what's coming up tomorrow on Transatlantic Call-In Show. Arden and Nominal Naomi. You can also watch me debate on Friday at noon on Modern Day Debates. How dare I advertise some other channel? There's more stuff coming here on this channel as well. Jimmy and myself will be on Sunday. Godless Engineer John Gleason and Jerry Williams will be on Skeptalk on Monday. HOSTility is still TBD, but I'll be back here on the Hang Up with Vice Rhino next week. A huge thank you to all of our mods and to Alex for screening, and especially to my dear Auden in the other room, who's recovering from something fluish and yet still did an outstanding job producing the show. Look, and as always, thank you to Dave Warnock. Issues of death and dying are difficult. I'm glad we took a lot of calls. I'm glad some people got maybe some insight or answers. None of us are going to have all the right answers. None of us are going to do it all well. I think Dave handles it exceptionally well. I'm proud to be associated with him and proud of what he's doing with Dying Out Loud and as a nonprofit moving forward. But going back to the topic that started the show off to kind of wrap this up. If you think God is punishing people, that's your opinion. And you're entitled to it. And you're entitled to share it. And if you share it privately with a friend because you're concerned, you might even be engaged in a very misguided but decent effort to help a friend who shares your views. But when you publish it on YouTube, and where you say that that person's opinion is the only one you care about, it's no longer about God or what God would do, because you have no reason to think that there is a God who would do that. No way to demonstrate that a God could do that. No way to demonstrate that a God has done that. And so all you're doing is just expressing your opinion. You don't have an argument beyond it's my sincere religious conviction that said this and thus and so. Why isn't God punishing me? Oh, he did. He gave you a heart attack. He gave me a mild heart attack, and the surgeon went in and fixed everything, took a picture, and now I'm back to doing all the stuff I did before. Why is God allowing me to keep exposing you for being irrational, unreasonable, self-righteous advocates of stuff that you can't defend? Why is it a constant parade of bad arguments, no evidence? I've got the best job security in the world because no matter how much I do, religion's not going away because you guys are irrational, desperate, and cocksure that you're right. Your Christian love is perverse. It's disgusting. It looks that way to any caring, reasonable human, and we all hope that someday you can see that because you can be better. In a debate that I did years ago in front of a Church of Christ and a bunch of preachers from the Church of Christ, I told them, I can write a better book than the Bible, and I can prove it to all of you right now, because I could rewrite the Bible word for word, reverse its position on slavery, and the book would absolutely, undeniably be better. I used to say that. It's true. And you won't get very many Christians even who will push back on that because that's a sticking point for them. But today I'm going to amplify it. I could rewrite the Bible word for word, not only reverse its position on slavery, I could reverse its position on sexuality, on gender equality, on corporal punishment, on sin, on death, and many other positions. And not only would the book be better, the world would be better. And you can do that. Or you can just set it all aside. You can drop that baggage. You can be a 22nd century, 23rd century, 24th century, 25th century grown-up. You can drop it all, adopt humanistic principles, and join the rest of us as we try to make the world better and undo the damage that you insist on doing by showing what a good Christian you are while being a terrible human being. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.